Let's talk about strategies once you're actually taking the test. Once you receive your exam, survey the test as soon as you start. Look over each problem carefully and be aware of the point distribution per problem. Take notes of which ones are going to be heavier to work through and which ones you can knock out very quickly. You want to keep a good pace during your exams. Do the problems you're comfortable with first. If you're not sure how to approach any other problems, save them for the end. Keep track of the time and the amount of problems left. I highly recommend bringing a digital watch with you to keep on a desk so you can keep track of how much time you have left in an exam. Don't rush and always remain calm. And don't give in to peer pressure. If people are finishing before you, you don't have to turn in yours. Don't be afraid to be the last person to turn in your exam if it means the work you did is correct. I also recommend, when looking at point distribution and difficulty of problems, to really make sure you take care of the easy ones first and that you check your work on those as you go. Because oftentimes you can spend a lot of time on a larger problem and get it right, only to find that you lost points later on an easier question that you would have gotten if you'd only given it another minute's time to look it over. Always be sure to proofread your work during the exam. Never turn it in early unless you have to. You always want to make sure you're checking for your signs and that your work checks out. My recommendation is to check between each line of work that you do to make sure that the previous line checks out into the current line that you're on. That way, you don't have to read through every single line that you did when you're reviewing your questions as you're verifying your work as you go. During the test, you'll often experience multiple choice questions, and there's a lot of strategies that we can observe here. Make sure you read the question carefully. Before you even go for a solution, make sure you read both the question and each option carefully. Sometimes the options will steer you toward a particular approach. Other times they'll help you understand what's required in the solutions. For the next few slides, I recommend that you pause for a moment and try these problems for yourself and try to apply multiple choice strategies to each of them. For example, this equation of the parabola that involves a transformation of a graph of a parabola. Think about the behavior of a parabola and how it's transformed when we transform the equation based on the options below. Try to plug in a few values for x as well and see if the behavior helps you get a representative number that reflects the graph. Another common tactic is to eliminate the wrong choice. For example, in this question here, the graph shows the elevation y in feet of a hot air balloon x minutes after noon. Write an equation for the graph in slope-intercept form. You're welcome to solve this one on your own, but just looking at the bottom here, we can see that we have 3 different solutions that involve some form of a negative slope, that is the constant that's attached to the x, -3 halves, -3 halves, and -2/3. And option D is a positive value, 2/3. Since this slope is clearly negative, we can immediately eliminate choice D from our choice bank, which makes it just a little bit easier for us. Again, feel free to pause for a moment and solve this on your own if you'd like to. Another choice is to test for each option. You can often find the correct answer by simply testing each option against the given conditions. The option that satisfies all the conditions is the correct answer. This is kind of a brute force approach, and sometimes can be difficult if you don't have a lot of time, but sometimes you can easily get an answer out of it if you're willing to work through it. So for both these problems, I would advise you pausing for a moment here and just taking each of these values and testing them until you find the correct answer to test out the strategy. You might encounter word problems during your exams. They are very common. So it's important to understand specific strategies for word problems. Make sure that you understand what the question is asking you. Read the question and visualize the elements of it. Circle key numbers and label them. Underline the question. Make sure you know what they're asking you to find. Draw a picture and make a table or a diagram if you need to, and think about what strategy you'll need to employ, what steps you'll need to take, which formulas or theorems should you apply, and how many ways can you solve this problem. Make sure that afterward you go back and check your final solution for accuracy and reasonableness. If Johnny ends up with e to the 10th apples, you probably did something incorrectly. Make sure you avoid careless mistakes when you can. Don't misread the prompt. Always make sure you understand what's being asked. If you have to use units, make sure that your units are correct. And if you have to convert, that you make sure that you convert as necessary. Be careful not to circle multiple answers on a multiple choice exam. And watch out for negative connotations in the question, like which of the following is not a true statement type of questions. After the test, have fun. Don't dwell on the exam, it's in the past, and just relax. You won't have an answer until the professor comes back with your grade, so there's no reason to dwell on the exam, regardless of how well or poorly you think you might have done. Once the test grades come back in, then you can think about if you did well, enforcing those positive strategies into the future, and if you did poorly, what you can do to improve your technique in the future. So don't worry about after taking the exam, and once you get your exam back, focus on how you can improve yourself. Thanks for watching.